The farm sat alone under a wide alien sky, quiet in a way that felt deeper than silence. Wind moved slowly through tall blue grass beyond the fields, bending it like waves on a frozen ocean. Two suns had already dipped below the horizon, leaving the land painted in soft purple light. Night was coming, cold and heavy. Elias Rowe finished locking the last storage shed and looked over his land. Rows of grain plants glowed faintly, fed by soil he had learned to understand better than most people ever understood other humans. He had lived here for 7 years. 7 years without neighbors, without cities, without voices other than his own. That was how he wanted it. Elias had once been part of humanity's expansion fleet. He had seen crowded stations, busy colonies, and loud political promises about peace and cooperation. He had also seen what came after those promises broke. Wars, fear, loss. When his service ended, he chose distance over noise. He bought the rights to an empty world and turned it into a farm. The galaxy had forgotten him, and he was thankful for that. He entered his small house, sealed the door, and activated the heat panels. The structure was simple: metal walls, reinforced windows, and a roof strong enough to survive dust storms. Inside, everything had a place. Tools were clean, food was stored carefully. Life followed patterns that did not surprise him. As he prepared a quiet meal, his old warning console flickered. Elias frowned. That console almost never activated. The planet had no known predators larger than small burrowing animals. No ships passed through this system, no reason for alarms. The screen flashed again, then went dark. "That's strange," he muttered. Before he could move closer, the lights dimmed. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. A magnetic storm was forming, rare but dangerous. He moved quickly, securing internal systems and closing external vents. Then it happened. A sound cut through the storm. A knock. Elias froze. No one knocked on doors out here. The knock came again, weak, uneven. His hand moved slowly toward the emergency locker where an old plasma cutter rested. He did not activate it yet. Instead, he approached the door with care, every sense alert. Through the reinforced window, he saw nothing at first, just darkness and rain-like particles blown by the storm. Then something moved. A shape collapsed against the door. Elias opened the external camera feed, his breath caught. A figure lay on his doorstep, curled in on itself, shaking. It was not human. The limbs were too slender, the skin a pale silver blue that reflected the porch light. Long dark hair clung to her face, wet and tangled. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She was alive. And she was not wearing any protective suit. "That's impossible," Elias whispered. The outside temperature alone should have killed her species, whatever species she was. No known alien could survive this world's night air without gear. And yet she was there, crying softly, making small broken sounds that were clearly pain and fear. Another burst of thunder shook the ground. Elias made his decision. He opened the door. Cold air rushed in, biting at his skin. The alien woman flinched and tried to crawl backward, her eyes wide with terror. They were large and dark, filled with tears that froze slightly at the edges. "No, no," Elias said quickly, lowering himself so he did not seem threatening. "It's okay, I won't hurt you." She did not understand the words, but his tone mattered. Her shaking slowed just a little. He removed his jacket and gently placed it over her shoulders, careful not to touch her skin more than needed. She gasped at the warmth and clutched the fabric like it was the only solid thing in the universe. Elias lifted her carefully and carried her inside. She weighed almost nothing. Once the door sealed behind them, the storm sounds faded. Warm air filled the room. The alien woman let out a broken sob and collapsed against his chest, too weak to stand. "It's okay," he said again softly. "You're safe here." He laid her down near the heat panels and wrapped her fully in thermal blankets. Only then did he step back and really look at her. She was clearly female by human standards, but her body was unfamiliar in subtle ways. Her bones seemed lighter, her movements delicate. Her skin shimmered faintly, almost like starlight beneath ice. There were small markings along her arms that pulsed softly when she breathed. She watched him closely, fear still present but no longer wild. Elias raised his hands slowly to show he meant no harm. He fetched water, warming it before offering it to her in a cup. She hesitated, sniffed it, then drank carefully. Her shaking eased. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the storm outside and her quiet breathing. Then she spoke. The sounds were soft and melodic, filled with emotion. He did not understand a single word, but he understood the meaning. She was explaining, apologizing, begging. Elias nodded slowly. "I don't understand you," he said honestly, "but you can stay, you can rest." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were different. Relief mixed with exhaustion. She closed her eyes and slept almost immediately. Elias stayed awake. He ran scans from a distance, careful not to alarm her. The results confused him even more. Her biology was unstable, like something had gone very wrong recently. Energy readings around her body were abnormal, as if space itself had been disturbed. "This isn't an accident," he murmured. Hours passed. The storm ended. The world outside returned to silence. When she woke again, she sat up slowly, confused, then saw Elias seated across the room. She stiffened, panic returning for a moment. He spoke calmly, keeping his distance. "You're safe, no one else is here." She studied him, then looked around the room. The warmth, the food, the shelter. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. She placed a hand over her chest and spoke a word slowly, clearly. "Sail." Elias pointed to himself. "Elias." She repeated it carefully. "Elias." He smiled despite himself. They spent the rest of the night like that, sharing names, gestures, simple drawings on a data pad. He learned she was far from home, that she had been chased. That something had gone wrong in the sky. At one point she drew stars and then sharp shapes chasing her. She drew herself falling alone. Elias felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He had seen that story before, just with different faces. When morning came, the suns rose over the fields, painting the farm in gold. Elias looked outside, then back at Sail. "Whoever you're running from," he said quietly, "they don't know humans very well." Sail tilted her head, confused. Elias looked at his land, his quiet life already changing. They picked the wrong door to knock on. Light from the two suns spread slowly across the fields, warming the soil and waking the small machines that cared for the crops. The farm looked peaceful, almost innocent, as if nothing strange had happened during the night. But inside the house, Elias knew his quiet life was already breaking apart. Sail stood near the window, wrapped fully in human clothes that were far too large for her. Elias had given her a simple fabric shirt and trousers, tightening them with straps so they would not fall. She kept touching the cloth, amazed by how warm and solid it felt. Her eyes followed the movement of the suns with quiet wonder. She looked fragile, but Elias knew better now. No fragile being could survive what she had survived. He placed a bowl of food on the table, soft grains and cooked vegetables. He moved slowly, careful not to scare her. "You need energy," he said, pointing at the bowl and then at her. She watched him closely, then nodded. She ate carefully at first, testing each bite. When she realized the food was safe, she ate faster, hunger finally showing. Elias turned away slightly, giving her space. While she ate, he checked his systems again. Long-range sensors were still damaged from the storm, but short-range scans showed faint disturbances in orbit. Something metallic, something hidden. Someone had followed her. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. He had hoped foolishly that she was truly alone, that whatever chased her had lost her during the storm, but hope was not something the frontier allowed for long. Sail finished eating and looked at him, sensing his tension. She made a soft, questioning sound and pointed at his chest, then at the console screen. "It's nothing," he said, though he knew she did not understand the words. "Just trouble." She stepped closer and gently touched his arm. Her touch was light, almost weightless, but it carried intent. She wanted to explain. They sat together on the floor and Elias opened a data pad. He pulled up simple shapes and symbols, letting her guide the story. Sail drew a long, curved shape, her ship. Then smaller shapes inside. She tapped herself, she tapped others. Then she drew sharp shapes approaching fast, weapons, fear. She drew the ship breaking apart. Elias swallowed. Then she drew herself escaping in a sphere of light, not a pod, something stranger. Energy folded around her drawing, twisting space. When she finished, her hands shook. "That's how you got here," Elias murmured. "You didn't land, you fell through something." She nodded slowly. Then she drew eyes watching from the dark, many eyes, hunters. Elias leaned back, rubbing his face. If hostile aliens were hunting her, they would not stop just because she reached human territory, especially not a forgotten world like this. "You should have landed on a core world," he said quietly. "They would have protected you." Sail looked at him, confusion clear. She pointed to herself, then made a weak shaking gesture. Fear. Then she drew humans, tall figures with weapons, fire. She had been afraid of humans too. Elias felt a sharp sting of anger, not at her, but at the reputation humanity had earned. He shook his head slowly and pointed to the farm. He drew a circle around it. Safe. Sale watched him carefully. Then she did something unexpected. She knelt. Her head lowered, her posture submissive, her hands open. It was not begging, it was offering. Elias stood up immediately. "No, don't do that." He gently lifted her to her feet. "You don't owe me anything." She looked confused again, but she stood. That moment decided something deep inside him. Elias activated old systems he had not used in years. Defense turrets rose from the ground between crop rows, disguised as farming equipment. Shield emitters hummed softly beneath the soil. He rerouted power, sacrificing non-essential systems to strengthen the perimeter. Sale watched from the window, eyes wide. She had never seen a human prepare like this, not loudly, not with threats, but quietly, efficiently, like it was just another day's work. By afternoon, the sensors screamed. Something entered the upper atmosphere. Elias guided Sale into a reinforced underground room beneath the house. It was not a bunker, just a storage shelter, but it would protect her for now. "Stay here," he said, pressing his palm against his chest, then pointing at her. "I will not let them take you." She grabbed his sleeve, fear sharp in her eyes. She spoke quickly, urgently. He did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. She was afraid he would die. He smiled, tired but steady. "I've lived through worse." That was not entirely true, but he believed it enough. The first scout ship appeared over the fields, sleek and dark, moving too smoothly for something natural. It scanned the land, beams slicing through crops and soil. Elias did not fire. He waited. The ship descended lower, confused. It had not expected resistance. It had expected emptiness. That was its mistake. The ground beneath it erupted. A hidden pulse disrupted its systems, forcing it to crash harmlessly into the dirt. Smoke rose, more ships followed. They surrounded the farm, hovering just outside weapon range, cautious now. A transmission hit Elias' console, alien language, sharp and demanding. He did not reply. Instead, he broadcast a simple message on all open frequencies. "This is human territory," he said calmly. "You are trespassing." Silence followed, then laughter translated crudely by the system, mocking disbelief. The hunters answered with weapons fire, shields flared, soil burned, crops ignited. Elias moved like he had never left the military. He rerouted power, adjusted angles, used the terrain. Turrets fired only when needed, precise and controlled. The aliens were strong, but they were careless. They had never fought a human protecting a home. Underground, Sale felt the ground shake. She pressed her hands against the walls, fear twisting inside her. But she also felt something else. Hope. Through small sensors, she watched Elias stand alone against ships that outnumbered him. She watched him refuse to retreat. Her people believed survival meant hiding. Humans believed survival meant standing. She reached for the last piece of her technology hidden beneath her skin. It burned as she activated it. A signal burst outward, not a call for rescue. A message, a truth. Across nearby systems, ears turned, eyes opened. A lone human farmer was fighting for an alien who was not his own, and the galaxy began to listen. The battle did not end quickly. Smoke drifted across the fields, mixing with burning soil and broken machines. One of the suns climbed higher, shining on scars that had not been there the day before. Elias moved through the chaos with steady focus, his mind clear even as alarms screamed around him. More ships arrived. They came carefully now, no longer mocking, no longer careless. They spread out, circling the farm from a distance, studying it like a dangerous animal. Their weapons charged but did not fire all at once. They were learning. Elias knew that was bad. He checked his remaining power. Shields were weakening. 2 turrets were destroyed. Ammunition was low. He could hold them off for some time, but not forever. Underground, Sale felt the fear return, stronger than before. She could sense the hunters above. Their technology was familiar to her in a painful way. She had seen what they did to small worlds, to weak species, to anyone who could not fight back. She thought of her people, hiding in silence, believing that survival meant staying unseen. Then she thought of Elias. He had no fleet, no army, no reason to fight except choice. Her hands trembled as she stood. The walls around her were strong, but safety felt wrong now. Staying hidden while someone else bled for her felt wrong. She pressed her palm to her chest, feeling the warmth of the farm above, feeling the human presence that had already changed her forever. "I will not hide," she whispered in her own language. Above ground, the hunters made their move. A coordinated strike hit the outer defenses, overwhelming the shields in a single focused burst. The air shook violently. Elias was thrown against a console, pain exploding through his side. He gasped, forcing himself to stand. "Still breathing," he muttered. The main door alarms blared. Something large was landing. Elias grabbed his rifle and stepped outside. A massive alien craft hovered just above the ground, its surface shifting like liquid metal. From it descended armored figures, tall, sharp, faceless. Their movements were cold and precise. A voice echoed from the ship, translated clearly this time. "Human," it said, "you have delayed the inevitable. Surrender the asset, you will be spared." Elias laughed softly, a tired sound. "This is my home," he replied. "You don't get to decide what happens here." Weapons raised. Before either side could fire, something changed. A pulse swept across the battlefield, not violent, not destructive. It was clear, like a signal washing away noise. Sail stepped out from the underground shelter. She walked slowly into the open, standing beside Elias. Her body glowed faintly, lines along her skin shining with steady light. The air around her bent slightly, space itself reacting to her presence. Elias turned sharply. "Sail, no." She looked at him, eyes calm despite the fear deep inside. She placed her hand lightly on his arm. She was not running anymore. The hunters froze. Their formation broke, confusion spreading through their ranks. Their sensors screamed warnings they did not understand. Sail raised her hands, not in surrender but in declaration. The light from her markings flared brighter and her technology fully awakened. A powerful broadcast surged outward, carried on frequencies ancient and respected. Her voice echoed, not just in sound but in meaning. "I am Sail of the Lurin Vale," she said, now understood by all. "I stand under human protection by choice." The battlefield went silent. Across space, the message traveled far beyond the system. It reached listening posts, hidden fleets, peaceful worlds that rarely spoke. It carried images, recordings, truth, a lone human standing against hunters. A farm turned into a shield, a species known for war choosing compassion. The hunter's leader reacted first. "You are mistaken," it said sharply. "Humans do not protect, they conquer." Sail turned her gaze toward the towering ship. "Then you have never seen one choose." Elias stood taller, pain forgotten for the moment. "You're done here," he said simply. For a long moment no one moved, then something unexpected happened. A new signal appeared, then another. Human ships dropped out of warp at the edge of the system, small patrol craft at first, then larger ones. They did not fire immediately. They positioned themselves calmly, deliberately between the farm and the hunters. A human commander's voice filled the air. "This is the United Terran Coalition," she said. "We have received a civilian protection broadcast. This system is now under human defense." The hunters hesitated. They had not expected humans to respond so quickly. They had not expected a signal powerful enough to reach them. They had not expected one alien woman and one farmer to matter. Outnumbered now, outmatched, they made their choice. Their ships rose slowly, weapons powering down. One by one they retreated, slipping back into the dark between stars. Silence returned. Elias exhaled and nearly collapsed. Sail caught him before he fell, supporting his weight with surprising strength. Human medics rushed forward moments later, surrounding them, treating his wounds. He looked up at Sail, still glowing softly. "You shouldn't have come out," he said weakly. She shook her head. "I should have, sooner." Weeks passed. The farm changed, but it did not disappear. Human ships came and went, repairing damage, reinforcing defenses, but they did not build cities or bases. They respected Elias' choice to remain a farmer. The crops grew again. Sail stayed. She was no longer hunted. Her people contacted her openly now, their fear shaken by what they had seen. Negotiations began. Alliances formed. Quiet ones, honest ones. Sail learned human words quickly. Elias learned patience in new ways. They worked the fields together. She learned the rhythm of the land. He learned the stories of the stars from her people's perspective. One evening, as the sun set, Sail stood at the edge of the fields and looked at the sky. "My people believed humans were dangerous," she said softly. Elias smiled. "We are." She looked at him, eyes warm. "Yes, but not in the way they feared." The galaxy remembered that day. Not because of a great battle or a powerful fleet, but because a human farmer opened his door, and the universe learned what humanity truly stood for.